Now that we already have a background of adjectives, their categories, types, and order, it is time for us to discuss the degrees of comparison. Life is full of contrasts and comparisons. Whenever we see something, the back of our mind starts to compare that thing to other things. With that being the case, we require a great number of adjectives, and we need an indication that this thing is better than the other, or best among the others. There are 2 degrees of comparison. 1. Comparative degree. Comparative degree uses comparative adjectives. These comparative adjectives are used to compare the differences between the attributes of 2 nouns. These are often measurements such as height, weight, depth, and distance. But they don't always have to be. We can also use comparative adjectives to compare non-physical characteristics like smart, wise, bold, strong, intelligent, and many, many more. 2. Superlative degree. Superlative degree, on the other hand, uses superlative adjectives. They are used to compare the differences between the attributes of 3 or more nouns. So, how are comparative adjectives and superlative adjectives formed? For short adjectives, which means adjectives that have only one syllable, that end in consonants, we add er for comparative and est for superlative after the adjective. Examples: we have the adjectives smart, tall, sweet, fast, and slow. If you notice, all of these adjectives end in consonants. So, when we form comparative adjectives, we just put er at the end. And to form superlative adjectives, we just put est at the end. So, for smart, it turns into smarter for comparative, and then smartest for superlative. And then taller, tallest, sweeter, sweetest, faster, fastest, slower, slowest. For short adjectives that end in letter E, we just add R for comparative and ST for superlative after the adjective. Examples: wise, safe, cute, and large. If you notice, these adjectives end in letter E. So, to form a comparative adjective, we just add R at the end. To form a superlative adjective, we just add ST. So wise turns into wiser for comparative and wisest for superlative. And then safer, safest, cuter, cutest, larger, and largest. For adjectives with 2 syllables and end in Y, we just remove the Y and then replace it with letter I and add ER at the end for comparative and EST for superlative after the I. Examples: we have the adjectives happy, lovely, bumpy, and sticky. If you notice, they all end in letter Y. So, from happy, it turns into happier for comparative and happiest for superlative. And then lovelier, loveliest, bumpy, bumpier, bumpiest, stickier, stickiest. So these adjectives originally have 2 syllables each and end in Y. Since they match the criteria, therefore we replaced the Y with I and added ER for comparative and EST for superlative after the I. For long adjectives, which means that adjectives that have 2, 3, or more syllables, we just add more or less for comparative and most or least for superlative before the adjective. Examples: we have the adjectives intelligent, beautiful, adventurous, and colorful. If you notice, they have 3 or more syllables. So to form a comparative adjective, we just add more or less before them. And we just add most or least before them to form superlative adjectives. So intelligent turns into more intelligent or less intelligent. That would depend on your comparison. And then for superlative, we have most intelligent or least intelligent. For beautiful, more beautiful or less beautiful, and then most beautiful or least beautiful. More adventurous, less adventurous, most adventurous or least adventurous. And then more colorful, less colorful, most colorful, least colorful. Each of these adjectives has 3 or more syllables, so they fall under long adjectives. For irregular adjectives, which means regardless of the number of syllables, if verbs have irregular ones, adjectives have too. Those are irregular adjectives. These adjectives do not have a specific pattern to follow as to form their comparative and superlative forms. And here is a list of common irregular adjectives: good, bad, far, many, well, little. Good, better, best. Bad, worse, worst. Farther or further, farthest or furthest. And then many, more, most. Well, better, best. And little, less, least. Let's use some of the comparisons we had earlier in sentences. This time, we'll also use a table. For no comparison, we just use the original adjective. So, for example, Jane is smart. Jane is adventurous. For comparative, we will be using comparative adjectives because it means we are differentiating or comparing two people or things. So it will look like this. Jane is smarter than Jenny. Jane is more adventurous than Jenny. For superlative, we will use superlative adjectives because it means we are comparing or differentiating 3 or more people or things. For example, Jane is the smartest among all of them. Jane is the most adventurous among all of them. Or, Jane is the most adventurous. When we compare two things or people, we usually put the word than after the comparative adjective, just like these examples here. Well, we usually put the word the before the superlative adjective when we compare 3 or more things, just like the ones also here.